come once again to discuss things.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen. I am Sid Part 2. Joining me today is Squatch Gang, aka Rasco, aka whatever he likes to be called.
Howdy, y'all.
Howdy, indeed. So we're doing a Star Trek fan film today. Once again, another one that I hadn't seen before I picked it. And the longest fan film we've done yet. Maybe one of the top 3 longest fan films I've seen, depending on how you count length of time that it lasts.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, this should be interesting. We're doing a fan film called Star Trek Horizon. So, Rasco, scale of 1 to 10, how much of a Star Trek fan are you?
On a scale of 1 to 10, how much of a Star Trek fan am I? I would say maybe like a 7.
Oh, okay. You ranked yourself higher than me. I'd say maybe like a 5.
It's kind of a tough question. I mean, how much do I like Star Trek, or like how much Star Trek have I seen?
How much do you like Star Trek?
How much do I really, really like Star Trek? The reason, if I were to say how much, I appreciate Star Trek, it would be very high. It would be like a 10. The only reason I rank myself like a 7 is because, I had not seen all of Star Trek, so I can't say that I've sought out every bit of Star Trek that exists. So I can't say that I'm the massive uber has seen all of it kind of guy. But I really, really like Star Trek though.
Yeah, I just kind of like it. I think it's okay, verging on good sometimes and verging on terrible and unwatchable at other times. I am currently working my way through all of Star Trek. I'm on a bit of a hiatus right now just because, spring started up and all the new shows are playing right now. But the only series that I have left to watch is Enterprise, which is when this is set. So it'll be interesting how this will color my watch through of Enterprise once I get to it.
Yes.
And ultimately, I was honestly surprised that the Enterprise subset of Trek fans had this much talent in it to pull something like this off.
Yeah, I guess that's...
Because, not if you like Enterprise or whatever, that's fine. I don't know yet. I haven't watched it, but I haven't heard much good about it. And most people, even those that like it, will kind of universally agree it is the worst of the Star Trek series.
Yeah, I have also not seen Enterprise, so...
Yeah, so I don't know, I'm just kind of surprised that there's enough passion and talent behind that subset of fandom to do something like this.
Yeah, I guess... Do we want to jump into the kind of things that we typically talk about with a fan film now? Do you just want to jump into all the different aspects of the film?
Yeah, let's just go ahead and start talking about it. Did you like this overall?
See, this is really weird because I don't really know if I'm having not seen Enterprise, and I talked to Cap about this because I just mentioned this fan film to him, and Cap looked it up, and then he watched a little bit of it, and he talked, and he was like, oh, by the way, it's really continuity heavy, so if you haven't seen Enterprise, good luck is what he said. So it's okay. And then I watched it.
No, I didn't. I certainly I know things about Enterprise, just what I've heard, but I don't really know a lot of the continuity of Enterprise.
Yeah.
And so a lot of this just, I feel like they explained it well enough. I understand that there's a temporal Cold War and...
Yeah, I understand what they explain. There are certain things where, I'm sure, you're not getting the full picture even if you think you are, having not seen Enterprise.
Yeah, but I don't feel like it was alienating. Do you?
I don't know. I think this would be a really hard thing to. If you were not a fan of Star Trek and I showed you this, I do not think this would have if you're not a fan of Star Trek because you just haven't seen any Star Trek, and I showed you this, I don't know that this is what would hook you on Star Trek.
Certainly, but I don't think you could do that with any fan film. Just show someone who is not with fan films, no matter how damn good they are, there's always a certain level of disconnect between them and Hollywood kind of stuff. So I don't think with any fan film you could take someone who is not a fan or doesn't have any interest in the property and get them to get into it by just showing them a fan film.
I don't know. It would depend on the fan film.
Of anything that could accomplish that.
I don't know. I think I don't know. It's possible. I'll leave it open. I don't know any off the top of my head, but at the same time, I'm not a person that's seen a shit ton of fan films. But,
I'm certainly open to it as well. I just don't think that I've seen one that I would say that about. So that's why I find that to be kind of a weird point. But I don't know. Just as someone that enjoys Star Trek, did you find this alienating?
Alienating, I'll say no. I could watch this, and for the most part, I know Star Trek enough to understand what they're talking about, and it's certainly more it's not as accessible as something like the Abrams movies.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can say that's an issue with those movies if you'd like to, but I mean,
yeah, we both like the Abrams movies, right?
I'm kind of iffy on the Abrams. It really depends on the time of day. Sometimes I'm okay with them, and sometimes I'm like, I don't really like these movies. But with this, knowing Star Trek. Just what I do know of Star Trek, this was easy to watch. This was easy for me to watch and understand. But I don't know. But obviously this is made for people that want to watch more Star Trek. So and obviously it's a fan film. So people working on it probably have some investment in Star Trek as well. The thing I will say about this that really kind of irks me, and this is something that I have a hard time. This is why. It's a lot of fan films. It's really hard for them to really win me over is because they pretty much, this is a concept. So if you're going to do a Star Trek fan film, you're going to need a lot of effects. And I don't know how they went about creating the effects that they did in this, but for the most part, the ships and everything, it's really freaking good. Would you agree with me on that?
Yeah.
The ships and everything, it looks great. It's the point where I said earlier in a couple of these where I talked about CG and stuff in fan films, and I said you probably shouldn't even try it. I've said that minimalism is really the best thing with fan films, but if you're making something that inherently requires more than that, I guess it's fair to try your best at that, and you can just kind of give that a caveat. Well, if you're a Star Trek fan. The effects in terms of the scenes in space and stuff, you're used to worse effects in Star Trek. This looks better than a lot of Star Trek
Yeah, I'd say this is up there with some of the stuff that was going on in the 90s. A little bit better. It's got that colorized thing that we do in the 2000s now. But I think, as far as the models and the space fights and stuff, this does look quite a bit up there. It's not quite as polished as the Abrams movies CGI, and I wouldn't expect it to be.
Yeah.
It is a nice middle ground. It's like if we'd had... I haven't seen Enterprise, so I can't comment on how close it looks to that style, but this is what I would guess I'd think of as mid-2000s Star Trek CGI.
That's all good enough. The issue I have with some of and so this is the part where and this is kind of a good thing, but at the same time this is a complaint I have with it. The interior shots of the ship, those are green screen, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of this is green screen. And I think it was a small green screen, because I'm not sure if this is just... I think I can say that the acting is probably the consistently worst thing about this, and everything else is actually pretty good. Fan film consideration, of course. But I think the acting's the worst thing about this, and so you could sell, maybe one or two people on a green screen at a time if you had better actors, but I feel like they were only able to do one or two people on a green screen at a time, and then they just had to composite them all together later.
Yeah, that's the thing about this. So this is where I have a hard time with fan films that are like this, shot on like mostly green screen, and this is why I have a hard time with this in movies, period. It's really, really hard for me to get invested in a thing like that, because how I see movies is that they are pretty much there's so many different mediums of art that like go into a movie. So it's cinematography, but it's also writing, and there's also concept design, and then there's clothing design, and then there's makeup, there's everything in movies, there's music, it's all different mediums of art come together, and it really bothers me when like a certain aspect is slated in the movie. And oftentimes when you shoot a movie entirely on green screen, pretty much the directing is severely hindered. Like, you just can't do much with a green screen when it's not, when things are not there in a lot of cases, because you can't like think about composition when you don't know what the composition is necessarily.
Oh, I'm totally disagreeing with you. I think there's some, especially considering that I'm sure a lot of this was shot on a green screen, or at least a set heavily enhanced by green screen elements. I can think of a number of shots that are pretty impressive from a directing and photography standpoint, or cinematography standpoint.
No, there are scenes like that. I think that they happen more towards the ending of the movie when they're like inside the...
No, I'm talking about on the ship.
On the ship, it's just so many headshots. It's so much headshots. Everything's in soft focus at all times. Yeah,
I get you. But like, what about the shot where they do the 360 of the captain? That looked fantastic.
No, there are definitely good shots in some of it, but a lot of it's like you get so many scenes of like dialogue and stuff. And here's the thing: in a fan film like this, in a movie or even in Star Trek television, like. Especially in Star Trek television, like they don't really do many close-ups of extreme like headshots. They do a lot of like big, wide open, like even TV lighting setting like shots like that in Star Trek and like on TV. And even the movies, they're a lot more atmospheric lighting, but like it's still not shot like with incredibly close headshots. And the reason for that is like when you're filming on like a set, you can film the scenery and like you can just film that. And, like, that's inherently interesting because that's just photography. Like, images that you're looking at can sometimes just compositionally be interesting. But when you're talking about, like, a fan film like this, when they know that how limited they are because of green screen and things like that, like, there's never, like, a scene where, like, they walk in and there's, like, this, like, slow-paced shot of someone, like, walking in a room and, like, you get to see the room and they walk in it. Like, because there's nothing there and they know it, so, like, they don't focus on it, and, like, it really takes me out of fan films sometimes. And this takes me out of a lot of things with poorly integrated, because I'm saying this with poorly integrated CG. I'm not saying, like, in every film green screen is bad and they shouldn't do it. I'm saying when it's poorly integrated, it's a thing. And, like, this is, I guess, maybe it's not even fair to complain about, because perhaps it's a caveat with a Star Trek fan film where you don't have a set, but at the same time I've seen sets built that looked fine and serviceable, so I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there are a lot of close-ups, and there's a lot of soft focus that might just be caused by motion blur trying to get the thing to key properly. But overall, I thought this was, for a fan film, really well handled. I can't even shoot on a green screen half this well. And I've been doing that for years now, just trying to get it right, and I still suck at it. The stuff they do in this, I think it looks really, really good. All the effects, they totally sell for me. As far as fan films go, I might agree with you if it was like a proper film, like Hollywood or something. But this is this is one of the most professionally done, one of the best looking fan films I've ever seen. Especially when you consider it's on a green screen. Like, there are some shots in this where I'm not quite sure how they did it. Like the rotating shot. Because I don't imagine that they have a full, like, I think it is a really small green screen that they're shooting on, and so I don't know how they did that 360 shot on the captain.
There was also one where it was the camera panned to like 4 different people or something like that, and like there was a point where you could see multiple people on the screen. It was like, obviously the room was not that big, but like they made it look fine. Like there is really good usage of the green screen. I'm saying that so it just takes away from like the cinematography aspect of something like this, where like you kind of like almost just completely slate that, and you just kind of have to focus on other things.
Maybe. I don't think it's a big enough problem for me. I think that with the constraints that they have, they are working in their constraints and doing incredibly well. This is better than a lot of green screen that's in actual Star Trek. So, take that how you will.
Yeah, you really notice it when they get on the planet, though, because when they're on the planet, it opens up so much more. Like, it's so much less constrained when they're, like, in the woods and, like, they go to the monument and stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree. It is less constrained at that point, but I don't know. I think that is relatively minor compared to all the problems they could have had. Like, I didn't see one little, like, string of green pixels surrounding anybody's head or anything like that.
Sometimes what you would see, though, is, like, their heads would be, like, blurred around the side.
Yeah, you'd see that quite a bit, but, I'd prefer a blur because it just looks like they're slightly out of focus.
Yeah, I would much prefer a blur than, like, a green line.
It looked really good. The CGI is really well integrated into the environment. Again, my biggest problem with this is the acting. I think the majority of the problems that we're noticing with the green screen stuff comes from the actors not being able to do it. And to be fair, that shit's hard for professional actors. Like when they shoot those motion capture heavy movies, where, it's just kind of an actor and he's got to sit there and talk to something, a lot of actors say they need someone there to just... It doesn't even have to be good line delivery. They just need a person there to be able to look at and talk back and forth with, because they can't do it all in their head. Mm-hmm. And so, as much as I like the integration of the green screen, like when they're running away from the drones and shooting at them, it doesn't look like they're really fearing for their lives and trying to avoid laser fire. There's just stuff like that where it doesn't quite look like the actors are selling it. And I think it's the acting more than the visual side. And like these guys, they do an alright job for some of the dramatic moments. I didn't like openly laugh or just give up at any of the acting in this, but it's just not quite there.
It's weird. I feel like I can tell when they started. I feel like they had to have filmed the early scene with not the intro clip. I'm talking about like when they're on the ship and it's being attacked in the very beginning. Mm-hmm. That must have been the first thing they filmed, because it was really bad. Their acting was really bad in that, and then just like kind of bad throughout the rest, but like serviceable. Mm-hmm. Like it got better, and it wasn't like taking down as much as it was in the beginning. But like that first scene that was definitely the first thing they filmed. I feel like.
With as much of this is done on green screen and not location shooting, it may very well have been shot in sequence. Mm-hmm. Or at least close to it. I don't know, like, the actors aren't great, but they're pretty much okay for Star Trek actors.
Some of them are better than others.
Yeah, like, there are actors in Star Trek that I just can't stand, like, whatever the fuck his name that plays O'Brien in TNG and DS9. That dude just, he cannot act. The only person who can't act more than him is his wife. Those two are just awful. And none of the actors in this are anywhere near as bad as those two. And I watched a whole, 6 seasons with those two. So, The acting is, though, I think the hardest thing to get through about this, because there's some moments that are supposed to be, like, really dramatic or really, like, heart-pounding, and the actors just can't get you there. Like, it reads better than it watches, I think.
Yeah, the one thing I will say, though, is with a lot of the emotional, like, aspects of their performance, they don't, like, try and then, like, horribly butcher, like, trying to, like, so, like, in the Green Lantern fan film, when the actor who was playing Green Lantern, some of those scenes where he, like, cried, he was not a good enough actor to make himself cry, but he still, like, went for it anyway, and it was really kind of cringeworthy to watch someone not be able to, like, act that well enough. And then in this, though, it was almost like they kind of, like, subdued it because they knew that they couldn't. They just kind of delivered certain things a little bit flatter than you would expect.
Yeah, I think this is a good example of they wrote around their limitations.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff is on the ship or in space dock or whatever, and then what's not is in a forest. So that everything, and they pull off the environments really well, and they integrate the people into those environments, I'd say overall really well, at times just okay. And so they wrote around their limitations in where they're going to be able to shoot and film, and then they also wrote around their limitations with how well they'd be able to deliver some of these lines and do some of these moments. I think the acting isn't great. The acting is my biggest problem, but still, I think it's pretty damn good. I think this is a really well done fan film. The other thing I wanted to talk about was just the overall story. How'd you like that?
It was, and that's the weirdest aspect of fan films, is because, like, you can talk about all of the technical aspects, and then, like, you can talk about the acting and everything like that, and then even if they get all of that right, then you have to just talk about it, like, on a narrative level, just the same as you would any other movie.
Mm-hmm.
This was not horrible, but not up to, like, professional standards, I guess, which is to be expected completely because it's a fan film.
I don't know. I thought the story was just kind of there. It was kind of serviceable. It gives you, the typical Trek dilemma of they go on a mission, something goes wrong on the mission. They have to. The ship is disabled because you can't have the ship be useful in Star Trek, so you have to come up with all these ways to disable it.
Yeah.
And then they discover what the root of their problem is that has put them in this situation. So they go down to the planet, they explore the problem some more, they get the bad guy of the episode, and they have to figure out a way to stop him and, continue the mission.
Yeah.
So I think basic Star Trek plot-wise, it lines up with everything. It feels kind of like a long episode of a series to me. Which, filler episode, I guess.
It just feels kind of disjointed. Like, the beginning of this movie doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the ending of this movie in a lot of ways. Like, it wasn't.
Yeah,
like,
that intro prologue scene.
What?
That prologue scene is a little like, yeah, do we really need this?
Yeah, and like it's weird because that's a really not interesting introduction. That scene is really just not interesting at all.
Yeah, it's just too much talking,
and it's confusing too because it's just kind of like a thing where you're like, what the fuck are they talking about? If you don't know Star Trek really, or if you just don't know Star Trek Enterprise or anything, and you can kind of be like, okay, I expect this to go somewhere, but it's not like it is really a super satisfying like revelation of events in this story that like leads you to this like profound this profound ending conclusion that ties up everything. Like it's not like that. Like they just kind of like set up a few things with individual characters as well.
Well, I think they're called what, the Iconians or something. I'm pretty sure they're from an episode of TNG. If I'm remembering it correctly, there's an episode of TNG where like there's a people that used to have a gigantic empire throughout the galaxy, and they travel through like doorways that they can open in space. So it is mired in Trek continuity, but at the same time, that doesn't excuse the intro. I think the intro is just poorly done. I think like you would, that was a little too much tell and not enough show, especially for the beginning. I would have much rather just started this with the space battle at the end, right?
Yeah. And like that's the thing
or
about
not the space battle at the end, the space battle at the beginning with the Romulans chasing the Discovery.
That's the thing about a lot of Star Trek fan films is that there are a lot of people that are like just specifically Star Trek fans. Mm-hmm. Like they love everything about Star Trek as a concept, as an entity, as a show, as a movie series. Like they love everything about Star Trek. And they don't necessarily love, like, television or movies in general. They just really like Star Trek. And I feel like a lot of times you have people that make these Star Trek fan films that are in that boat. So they don't come at it from, like, a screenwriting perspective or a directorial perspective. They come at it from, like, a how do we capture what other Star Trek is and, like, make this feel authentic and make this feel like real Star Trek. So it plays to a lot of the tropes of Star Trek, and like it more tries to blend in with Star Trek than like be its own original thing.
And I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that. Again, I wouldn't
not necessarily
I wouldn't have someone come up to me and be like,
they're trying to be Star Trek.
Yeah, I wouldn't have someone who comes up to me and is like, I want to get into Star Trek, what should I watch? Well, there's this great fan film. I couldn't see myself doing that to anybody. If I were to tell someone to get into Star Trek, I'd be like, just start with, season 3 of The Next Generation. Or, just most anything else. So, I don't know, I think the story, it's not great, but it's not, like, laughably bad. It's not like it doesn't make sense. The villain's kinda lame, which is just a consistent problem in Star Trek. He just kind of sits there and dies. Yeah, he does have a cool helmet. But he just kind of sits there and dies at the end. I think that's, besides the acting, I think that's kind of my biggest problem, is he's like just sitting there and he's about to press a button and then they just shoot him. It seems like he should have had a better way to kill them than just sending the drones to swarm. I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
Yeah.
I like the idea behind the weapon, that I'm not sure exactly what it does, but I like the idea behind it. Just giant planet-sized weapon that's, it should have been destroyed, but it's too tempting not to destroy it. I like that idea. I like the Iconians kind of disappearing it to try to repurpose for themselves. And I think the character work all works really well here. You got the captain in love with the crewmate, and I think their story kind of ended in a, pretty typical but satisfying Star Trek kind of way. Because the captains just never get to be happy, not once, not ever. No, seriously, that's Star Trek. Captains don't get to be happy. Why do you think Kirk slept around so much? And so he doesn't get to be happy. He gets kind of, a bittersweet ending, gets to say goodbye and stuff, and, she turns out to be alive. I don't think there's anything wrong with the story, do you?
Oh, no, there's nothing, glaringly bad. If this was in continuity, it wouldn't be once this movie was made, they couldn't make any more. Well, Star Trek is never that kind of continuity. They will move on from anything that they do that's stupid, but, it's not the kind of thing that would destroy a franchise, no.
Yeah, and so I don't know, I'll be curious to watch Enterprise and see how I react to it having watched this. Because I have the feeling that this is going to be better than a lot of it. I think what this is trying to do is take the things about Enterprise that were cool and make it work for itself. I think that's what's going on here, but I don't quite know, because I haven't watched Enterprise yet.
Maybe these people just had horrible taste. They made a movie about Star Trek Enterprise.
I don't know. It is a weird thing, like I said, to make a fan film about Enterprise specific. Like, I just saw Star Trek Horizon, and I go, okay, cool, a Star Trek fan film. And I figured it'd be TNG, DS9, Voyager era stuff. And I was really surprised that it was an Enterprise fan film. And hearing what I've heard about Enterprise, I was really surprised it was as enjoyable as it was. I wasn't insulted by anything in here like I have been with Star Trek. I wasn't dismayed, and I was pretty fully impressed by just how damn well done this fan film was. Did you have anything else you wanted to talk about?
I don't really know. I mean, I guess this is... If I will say anything, I think that what works about this fan film is that it's really consistent, at least in its visuals. Like, it doesn't like randomly look much worse in one segment than it does in any other. Like you have with a lot of fan films, like that Spider-Man one we watched last time. That one's like completely viable, and then like you get to the end and they do like the lizard costume and like the CG arms.
Yeah,
it's just like one part, but like this is at least consistent in the way it looks. Like it doesn't look different from scene to scene.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention, I just posted the Spider-Man episode today as we're recording. We got a comment from the filmmaker on that. He was really happy that we did a review of it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was kind of neat. But yeah, I was pretty happy with this overall. Let's go ahead and do a score. I will give this... I think I'm going to go with 4 out of 5. Half point off for the acting, half point off for, like, some of the inconsistent... or not inconsistent. For some of the just random silly things here and there. Like the villain that's kind of just a non-entity, but that's a problem with all of Star Trek. I'll go ahead and give this... Yeah, 4 out of 5. Planet-sized weapons that pull starships across the galaxy? Universe? Yeah, universe. How about you?
I'm gonna give this... I'll give it 3.5 cubes pulled through holes in walls out of 5.
Okay. That was a cool scene. I like that. That looked pretty well done, too. Alright, so what are we going to talk about next time?
Oh, crap, I forgot. Hold on 1 second. Stall while I look something up. I'll find one really quick. Okay, here's what we'll do. Here's what we're going to do. Next fan film is Batman City of Scars.
Okay, that's a pretty famous one.
Yeah. We'll just get that one.
Yeah, that should be fun. Yeah. Alright, everyone, thank you very much for watching. Until next time, I'm the Philosopher.
And I'm the Squavis.
And we're your Geeky Gentlemen. And we will be discussing things.